On behalf of the Law Enforcement Division of the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, I would like to welcome you to the 2018 Indiana NASP State Tournament. Thank you for your time and commitment to bring this tournament to life. We would like to start by thanking all our wonderful sponsors. Help us show our appreciation by visiting their booth, supporting their organizations, or simply just saying thank you. This year, we will have over 2,500 student archers, and your role as a coach is vital to the success of this year's tournament. To ensure your team has enough time, please arrive 1 hour before your scheduled flight time. One of the most important steps that can be taken before your flight is inspecting your equipment. If your equipment fails inspections, flights will not be delayed for modifications or changes. If there are any equipment failures during the flight, the lane officials may grant time to make the necessary repair or substitution. In this situation, the archer will remain on the shooting line while the bow is repaired. It is a good practice to have additional equipment on standby. One such example would be an arrow rest. Here are some important rules to remember. Only factory Genesis bows will be permitted. Bows not permitted include the Mini Genesis, the Genesis Pro, Gen X, or any other model. No alterations are allowed. This includes but not limited to sight markings, draw stops, vibration dampeners, wrapping tape around the limbs, using carabiners for identification, or any other modifications that will provide an advantage. Cable guard slides must be the original black Genesis slide. Brass knock indicators are not permitted. However, 2 tie-on Knox locators are allowed within permitted spacing. The arrow must be placed between them on the bowstring. Camouflage bows will be permitted on the condition that the face is covered with black tape. When applying tape, it needs to be one continuous vertical piece starting at the top of the bow's grip and running at least 6 inches up the face. Horizontal taping is not permitted. Painted grips are allowed but cannot be texturized in any way. Please take a little extra time to ensure that all equipment meets the tournament rules and is ready for use prior to your student's flight. When it's time for your student's flight, they will be instructed to bring their bows to the bow racks. If you brought your own arrows, they will need to be placed in the floor quivers. If your school did not bring arrows, the lane officials will provide your archer with them at this time. Remember, if you are using your own arrows, be sure they are clearly marked and in a case until they are brought forward to the shooting line. The shooting line is the only place that arrows can be out of their carrying cases. Once the bows are placed on the rack, the lane officials will begin to inspect the equipment for compliance. No adjustment to the bows can be made after the first scored arrow is shot. Coaches, remember that you are not permitted to instruct your archers while they are shooting. All coaches must remain behind the coaches line. This line is directly behind the shooter's waiting line, but it is in front of the curtain barrier that separates you from the general public. 3 coaches from your team will be given a striped wristband and coach's credentials at check-in. In order to be on the coach's line, both credentials and wristband must be worn. At the end of your flight, the coach's credentials must be returned to the main stage or the information booth in the Blue Ribbon Pavilion. When it's time for your students to shoot, they are to take their scorecards up to the target line. In front of every target, there will be a board with a set of rubber bands to secure the cards without damage. Scorecards must remain on the floor at the target line at all times. It is worth noting that the scorecards will indicate the shooter's lane assignment and whether they are on the right or the left. A shooter's position in their lane is permanent, no switching will be allowed. The shooter and the quiver are given 30 inches and must stay within this space. There will be an X on the shooting line. This indicates the center of the target. The act of crowding this area is strictly forbidden. After an initial warning, continued violations of this rule will be considered unsportsmanlike and can result in a disqualification. For everyone's safety, please remind your students that arrows must be pointed downrange through every step of the shot. No sky draws or floor draws will be tolerated. During the course of shooting, if an arrow reaches the target line, whether through the air or sliding along the floor, the arrow will be considered shot. This is not to be confused with a bounce out. An arrow that deflects off another arrow and sticks in the target is scored where it sticks. If it fails to stick in the target, this is treated as a bounce out. When a bounce out occurs, a replacement shot will be permitted. Shooters are instructed to remain on the line so that the replacement shot can be taken. If the student is using tournament arrows, a lane official will provide the replacement. If your school is providing the arrow, it is your responsibility as the coach to supply the replacement. Once they have completed their round, students are asked to immediately return to the waiting line while being mindful of their fellow participants. For example, if a student's completing their round but their lane mate is at full draw, kindly wait until they have completed their shot. Little courtesies like this go a long way to ensure a fair and successful tournament. From year to year, our number one issue with the scorecards is forgetting to bubble in the shooter number. Please make sure that this is done prior to your flight. Additionally, do not mark on any part of the scorecard that is not designed for scoring. Keeping the scorecards clean and damage-free helps the scoring process through our automated machines. When it's time to score, remind your students that they are to walk up to the target line and they are not permitted to sit or kneel at any time. Archers are to remain on their feet. Students are not to touch any arrows until all 10 are scored, bubbled in, and the scoreboard has been returned to the target line. Prematurely touching an arrow can result in a disqualification of that arrow, effectively reducing the score to 0. Last year, we introduced a new scoring protocol. We are aware that not every school has been following this new system, but it will be strictly enforced at this year's tournament. After stopping at the target line, Archer A will pick up the scoreboard. They will call out and bubble in Archer B's arrows. Archer B will check that the bubbles are accurate and place a check mark adjacent to the end. At this point, the roles will reverse. Checking the box means that the archer agrees that the scores are accurate. If there are any discrepancies, archers must alert the lane official immediately. The lane official will be the only person allowed to erase or make corrections. To ensure that no tampering is committed, the lane official will note and sign on the back of the scorecard if a mistake was corrected. Any disagreements about the arrow must be resolved before that arrow is pulled. Forgetting to mark an arrow before they are pulled will result in a 0 for that arrow. At the conclusion of the flight, each student will review and sign each other's scorecard. This ensures that the student acknowledges that the scores are correct and accurate. Once the scorecard is signed, no other changes or alterations can be made. This scorecard is finalized at this point. In the event that a decision must be made during the flight, a trained and knowledgeable lane official will be present. Any decisions or ruling made by the lane officials or lane supervisors are final. Cheating or unsportsmanlike conduct will result in a disqualification. Any archer disqualified from a state tournament will be ineligible to compete at the national or world tournaments for the remainder of the school year. There is no exceptions. Lane officials will have very limited verbal communication with your archers. You will need to be available to pass along any instruction to your archers as needed. From qualifier to the state tournament, each archer has earned his or her spot, and Indiana NASP could not be any prouder of their journey. As the tournament comes to closure, we have made efforts to streamline awards, shoot-offs, and the presentation of their qualifier medallions. Directly behind the information booth in the Blue Ribbon Pavilion, a team of Indiana conservation officers will be on hand to present each team with their qualifier medallions. These qualifying medallions celebrate each archer's journey to the Indiana State Tournament. Immediately after receiving their qualifying medallions, our tournament staff will take your team's picture. Please feel free to pick up your team's medallions and get their picture taken anytime throughout the day. We are no longer requiring it be done at the conclusion of their flight. We are requiring each team to get their medallions and have their picture taken. Additional efforts have been made to streamline the awards portion of the tournament. This includes breaking any ties. The only ties that will have a shoot-off will be for first place. All other ties will be awarded multiple awards. The awards ceremony will take place at the NASP IBO 3D range as soon as all scores have been recorded and processed. Though we have streamlined the presentation as much as possible, we ask for your patience in allowing enough time for all deserving teams and individuals to receive their awards. Please take a few minutes to consider the NASP Academic Archer Program. This program is designed to recognize archers who participated in their school's NASP program and maintain a set grade point average. Basic archery instructors, we strongly encourage reviewing the academic archer criteria located at indiananasp.com. Please work with your school to submit your archers for this honor. They do not need to be involved in the competition to qualify. Certificates, patches, and decals will be sent to your school in time to recognize these archers at your school's award night. The Indiana NASP State Tournament is the capstone to the effort, dedication, and participation in the NASP program. For a senior, it's his or her last state tournament. For an elementary archer, this is the bar they will strive to achieve every year. It's not about the parents, the coaches, the teachers, or even the NASP program. This one-day tournament is focused on the archers and the achievements they made up to this moment. What they have experienced will follow them well beyond the tournament. They were not looking at the clocks or wondering if they were going to be tired the next day. The participants were living in the moment, taking it all in and enjoying it with friends they will have for a lifetime. I want to thank Chris Clark, our tournament coordinator, for the countless hours that goes into preparing for this event. I would also like to thank Indiana Conservation Officer Lieutenant Larry Morrison for his behind-the-scene efforts to make this event happen. Finally, I want to thank the State Tournament Committee for their guidance, expertise, and commitment to this program and its students. Again, on behalf of the Indiana Department of Natural Resources Law Enforcement Division and the Indiana NASP program, we want to thank you for your time and dedication to the students. We are truly changing lives, one arrow at a time.